Nice. Morning, everybody. Fox News alert now. The blame game on the border after meeting with Governor Rick Perry. New outrage today after President Obama says it's up to Republicans in Congress to fix the surge of illegals pouring across our border.
Are folks more interested in politics, or are they more interested in solving the problem? If they're interested in solving the problem, then this can be solved. If the preference is for politics, then it won't be solved.
Another side to that story. Good morning, everybody. Those comments not sitting well with Republicans today, and that's where we begin. I'm Bill Hemmer, and welcome here to America's Newsroom.
Good morning, Bill. Happy Thursday. Good morning, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum. So the president says that he needs Congress to okay the $3.7 billion in emergency funds to deal with the humanitarian crisis. But Governor Perry says that's not the real issue. He says it's really about securing the border.
That's the same president that said al-Qaeda's on the run. And, I don't know whether he's inept or there's something else going on, as I've said before. But the fact is the border's not secure. We have a humanitarian crisis on our hands now because the border is not secure. And the president needs to understand that the single most important thing that he can do is put the National Guard on the border to coordinate with local law enforcement, with our state law enforcement, with the Border Patrol, and you can secure the border.
That was Sean Hannity last night. Meanwhile, the president wakes up in Austin, Texas this morning, but still no visit to the border. Stephen Hayes, senior writer, Weekly Standard, Fox News contributor, here to analyze this. And Steve, good morning to you.
Morning, Bill.
Waking up in Austin, day two, no visit to the border, but the blame is shifting. It's almost predictable for Washington these days.
Well, I would say it's really predictable for this president in particular. It's as if he doesn't have another page in his playbook when he doesn't know how to handle a problem when he's faced with something that's growing every day, that's escalating. His sort of de facto default move is to blame Republicans. But I think that's a gutsy argument, an argument that takes a lot of chutzpah from this president in particular, because he's basically structured his entire second term around the idea that he can work around Congress. Just this morning, the White House put out an update on the year of action, basically listing the things that the president has done working around Congress. But on this one issue that's grown into a crisis, he can't work around Congress?
Well, there's a lot from Rick Perry last night with Hannity. Here's more with Sean now and the governor.
We have a humanitarian crisis on our hands on the southern border, and the president needs to be engaged. The president he's coming to Texas. He's 311 miles from Austin to McAllen. I mean, Air Force One's a pretty fast ride. I think about the criticism that George W. Bush received when he didn't go to New Orleans at Katrina. This is no different. This president needs...
Did you ask him?
Absolutely. The first thing I asked him when I got on to Air Force One, I said, Mr. President, I said, I really want you to come and see this, because I said this is important for you to absorb as a father, but more importantly as the President of the United States, to see the humanitarian crisis.
Now, he's pushing for the National Guard, but under the current law, even the illegals coming across, they would not be sent back necessarily. Perry makes the point putting the National Guard would send the message back to Central American countries that the United States is no longer open for business with an open door. What is your sense?
Well, I think that's true as far as it goes, if that in fact is the result, but that would take a long time. What strikes me is that the president didn't include with this $3.7 billion supplemental request any legislative language that would change the Wilberforce Act of 2008 that would actually change the law. And he didn't make such a proposal. Now, there are members of Congress who think he can do this unilaterally, think he has the authority to make these changes or enforce it selectively as he's done with so many other laws, but he's opted not to do it. I think until the president seeks that change in an active way, he's not serious about solving the problem.
So I don't get the sense, and based on that answer, you don't get the sense either that anything is changing on this, do you?
No, I don't think anything is changing at all. And I think the indication that this is status quo ante is that the president decided that he was going to play politics by trying to throw this in the lap of congressional Republicans when it's something that requires presidential leadership.
Stephen Hayes, thank you. Waking up in Austin today, Stephen Hayes waking up in Washington. Thank you, Steve. Martha.
So meanwhile, the request for that $3.7 billion gets its first look today on Capitol Hill. A Senate panel is going to determine whether to approve the emergency funds, asking top White House officials where the money specifically is going to go. There are signs that much of it would be used to care for the illegal immigrants who have already overwhelmed federal facilities, and we're running out of space for them. Look at these cute little girls and boys, and you think about what they're going through. But the House Speaker, John Boehner, says that the president's funding request avoids what is the central issue to this problem.
If you look at the president's request, it's all more about continuing to deal with the problem. We've got to do something about sealing the border and ending this problem so that we can begin to move on with the bigger question of immigration reform.
Yeah, talk about not seeing eye to eye. The president said last month that Speaker Boehner told him that the House would not vote on an immigration reform bill this year. And meanwhile, Ted Cruz trying to help the president find his way to the border to see the immigration crisis firsthand. The Texas senator has sent the president some Google Maps and tweeted directions. He says, here's how you can get there. It's about 311 miles away, as we heard. The president is doing fundraising stops in Austin and Dallas, as you know. That continues this morning, but Ted Cruz is giving him a little bit of a hand in case he needs to figure out how to get from where he is to that border that's about 300
You don't have to
miles
print those
away.
out, you know, that's right there.
You can even have them on your smartphone.
What do you think? Is the National Guard now the answer to solving this crisis, at least in the near term? Send us a tweet at Bill Hemmer and at Martha McCallum, and we'll share some of your thoughts throughout the morning today. Coming up.